There's a grave in the west of Ireland. Old stone, it's leaning a little now, the way old stones do. And if you push back the grass at the base, you'll find something carved into it that really has no business being on a headstone. It's not a cross or an angel, it's not a name and two dates. It's a monster, a long body, a dog's head thrown back, and a blade driven straight down through the back of its neck. Someone paid a stonemason 300 years ago to carve the thing that killed the woman buried underneath. And they didn't carve it as a warning, or a prayer, or a symbol. They carved it as a record, because as far as they were concerned, it happened. So tonight, I want to take you to a small lake in County Leitrim. I want to tell you exactly what they say came out of the water on a September morning in 1722. And then I want to show you the thing almost nobody tells you about this story. Because the monster is real. You can go and touch the proof. It's just not the proof you think it is. The creature is called the DOH-war KOO. It's one of the only monsters in the world with a documented address, not a blurry photo, not a story your uncle heard. A carved 18th century gravestone in a real cemetery that you could go and visit this weekend. And that changes the whole game, because usually with these stories, I'm asking you to believe an eyewitness. Here, the eyewitnesses are dead, and they left a stone behind to argue their case. So there are really two questions tonight, and they don't really have the same answer. The first is simple. What happened at Glenade Lough? The second is the one that actually matters. If a real family carved a real monster onto a real grave, then what did they see? Let me walk you down to the water. Glenade is a valley in the north of County Leitrim. It's tucked up near the border with Sligo. Steep sides, cliffs at the head of it that go grey when the clouds come down. And at the bottom, that long, dark lake. It's a quiet, beautiful, lonely kind of place. The sort of place where the nearest neighbour is a field and a half away, and the water is the last thing you see before dark. Now, put yourself in the year 1722. There's no electricity, no road with a name. The lake isn't a view, it's a well, and a washtub, and the only mirror you've got. You go down to the water because you have to, and it's a chore so ordinary, you don't even think about it. That's the thing to hold on to. Nothing about that morning was supposed to be a story, because on the morning of the 24th of September, a woman took her washing down to the edge of the lake, the same walk she'd made 1,000 times before, down the slope, down to the grey line where the grass gives way to the water. And she knelt at the edge of the lake, and she began to wash. Her name was Grace, and her husband that morning stayed up at the house. The morning goes on, and she doesn't come up. You kind of know that feeling when somebody should be back and they're not. The first thing you feel isn't fear, it's irritation. He probably called her name, probably muttered about it. Probably took his time walking down, expecting to find her chatting to a neighbor, or bent over the wash, or expected nothing really. Picture him coming down the slope to the shore. Picture him seeing her from a distance, lying at the edge of the water at rest, the way you'd lie if you stopped to sleep in the sun. And picture the moment he gets close enough to understand that she's not asleep. His wife is dead at the edge of the lake, and there's something lying across her body. They describe it as about the size of a large dog. Some say black, some more of a dark brown, with fur that shines wet and slick like when an otter comes up out of the water. A long body, a long tapering tail, and that head, the part everyone agrees on, is a head that was somewhere between a hound and a fish. It was lying over Grace, and in the way the story's always told, it wasn't finished. Terence goes back up to the house. He comes down again with a knife. Some versions do say a gun, but the stone, it clearly shows a blade, so we'll go with that. And he does the one thing you would like to believe you'd have the courage to do. He kills it. He drives the blade down into it, there at the water's edge, over the body of his wife. And this is where the story stops being grief and becomes something older. Because as the creature dies, it whistles. Not a screech, not a roar, a whistle, thin and high, and carrying out across the black flat water of the lake. A signal, a call. And the lake answers. Out in the middle, the surface breaks. Something else is moving under the water, and it's coming for the shore. Because the DOH-war KOO doesn't travel alone, and Terence had just killed its mate. He doesn't stand and fight, he runs. In the fullest version, the one the folklorist Joe McGowan wrote down from a local man named Patrick Doherty, Terence isn't alone, he has a companion, and they have horses. They get up and they ride, out of the valley, west towards Sligo. And behind them, low and fast, comes the second DOH-war KOO. Think about what kind of thing that is. Something that came out of a lake and is now running down horses on open ground. Not swimming, not lurking, chasing, overland, faster than a frightened horse. They ride until the horses are blown to a place called Cashel, under the hills in County Sligo. And there's a blacksmith there, because of course there is. A blacksmith is iron and fire and the old protection against unnatural things. And the smith tells them one thing. When it comes, and it's nearly on them by now, turn the horses, stand them side on, because the DOH-war KOO will go low. It'll go for the soft place, the belly, the legs. So they turn the horses side onto the road and they wait. And out of the dusk, the second one comes in, low to the ground and fast, exactly the way the smith said it would. And Terence puts the blade through it, through the neck, the same wound you'll see carved on his wife's grave. 2 of them, both dead, one at the lake over Grace, one in Sligo under a horse. And then these people did something that stops me every time I think about it. They didn't want the stone to say, beloved wife. They didn't want scripture. They took the most permanent, most expensive thing a poor family in 1722 could buy, a carved headstone, and they spent it on a portrait of the animal. On its back, legs in the air, a blade through it, and a figure standing over it. They wanted anyone who ever stood at that grave to know exactly what did it. Now, here's where I stop telling you a legend and start showing you an object, because everything I've just described you can check. There's a graveyard called Conwall near King Lough in County Leitrim, and in there is a flat, worn 18th century slab, and carved into that slab is an animal on its back, a long neck stretched out and a human figure standing over it, driving something down. The stone is real, and it's old. It's been photographed 100 times. Someone in the 1720s spent real money and real labor to make this permanent. And that's the moment people lose their footing. They see a genuine weathered 300-year-old grave with a monster on it, and a little voice says, well, it's carved in stone, somebody believed it enough to pay for it. Doesn't that make it true? No. And this is the whole trick of the DOH-war KOO. The stone is not evidence that a monster existed. It's evidence that a monster was believed in completely, and by people burying someone they loved. Something killed Grace Connolly, and I have no doubt a woman died at that lake, a drowning, an animal, something violent and sudden at the edge of the dark water, in a valley where the nearest help was a field and a half away. And when the people of Glenade tried to carve the shape of what took her, they reached for the only shape in their world already had for a killer that comes out of the water. And that shape was already waiting. It was hiding this whole time in plain sight. It was hiding in the name. DOH-war KOO is not the name of a monster. It's a word you'd find in a dictionary. Break it apart. Dua. It's an old Irish word for water. KOO. Hound. Water hound. And if you learn Irish today, DOH-war KOO is simply one of the ordinary words for otter. That animal, the sleek whiskered fish-eating animal in every river in Ireland. Think about that for a second. The monster of Glenade Lough, the beast on the gravestone, the thing that chased 2 men in Sligo, is called, in plain Irish, the otter. But not just any otter. Across Ireland and the Scottish Highlands there was an old belief in a king among them. The master otter, the king otter, a giant otter, pure white, or white with a black spot, or black with a white cross on its chest. The details move from valley to valley the way they do. And this king was not an animal you hunted for its fur. It was something else. They said its pelt could not be pierced, that a scrap of that white skin would keep a man from ever drowning, keep his house from ever burning, keep him from ever losing in a fight. It was the most valuable thing in the folklore of the whole island, and the only way to kill it was to strike one soft spot, a little mark under the chin or on the belly. Now go back and hear the Glenade story again with that in your ear. A water hound killed with a single blade, struck low underneath where it was soft, exactly where the blacksmith told them to aim. The people of Glenade weren't inventing a creature. They were fitting a terrible, real death onto the most powerful water legend they already owned, the King Otter, the one whose hide turns away every blade but one. So, is the DOH-war KOO real? Here's my honest verdict, and it's got 2 halves because the story does. Was there a monster in Glenade Lough? No. This was a lake, and a real woman and a death violent enough that a grieving family reached past every ordinary explanation and carved a beast into a stone. But is the DOH-war KOO real? In a way that actually matters? Yes, it's the King Otter, It's the everyday word for the animal in the river lifted up into something that can't be pierced and can't be drowned, and can't be forgotten. It's a belief so solid it has a headstone. Most legends live only in the telling. This one has an address, a date, and a grave you can stand in front of. And that's the part I can't shake, not the teeth, the stone, that grief and fear. An old story can press down on a family so hard that they'll spend their last money making the monster permanent, so that 300 years later, a stranger can push back the grass and read what they were sure they knew. Something came out of the water at Glenade. They never doubted it, and they made very sure we never could either. If you enjoyed this one, hit like and subscribe. Drop a comment down below, because the next story I want to tell you starts with a boy who skipped church to go fishing and pulled something small out of an English river. He threw it down a well to be rid of it. That was his first mistake, and the price his family paid for that morning ran 9 generations deep. So here's my question, and I do read the comments. That gravestone is real. It's still standing. If you'd have found your wife at the edge of that lake, would you have carved the monster or the cross? Tell me down below. Some things don't stay buried.